The story starts with a white-haired girl running. On the other hand, a blonde girl sees a man injured. She uses her magic healing the man's hand. The white-haired girl comes and calls her Rumia. The white-haired girl is called Sistine. As they both walk conversing about a new substitute instructor joining their academy, suddenly a young man runs towards both the girls. Sistine nervously uses her magic and blows him away. He lands onto a waterfall. Sistine apologizes to him. He showcases his style and handsomeness and again gets blown away by magic. The substitute instructor is very late, so the others are complaining. The instructor enters the classroom. He is called Glenn Rader, the guy Sistine met earlier. The other instructors are fighting why Glenn is enrolled, as he is not qualified enough to be an instructor. He was recommended by Professor Celica, and hearing her name, the one guy protesting immediately takes his leave. In the classroom, Glenn is very sloppy when teaching the students. Sistine is very angry on him. As soon as the bell rings, he immediately leaves. Sistine is very depressed after the class. Rumia tells her to forget about what happened and have lunch. Glenn comes and sits with them. Rumia and Glenn have a conversation. Rumia takes a bite from Glenn's lunch. Sistine has very less lunch. Glenn tells her if she has a problem. As she tries to tell him something, he shoves a spoonful of beans onto her and she gets flustered. He even take a part of her lunch. In a flashback, we see Celica telling Glenn to work as an instructor, but he doesn't agree. Celica uses her magic to scare him, and with no way out, he accepts her offer. In class, Glenn continues his lazy behavior. Sistine gets up and tells Glenn that she is from the noble family and can get him kicked out. Glenn is very happy and tells her to do it as soon as possible. Hearing this, Sistine gets very angry and challenges Glenn to a duel. Everyone in the class is shocked by her decision. She tells him that if she wins, he will teach properly. She is extremely upset because he is mocking the academy and magic itself. Glenn agrees to the duel and everyone in the class is shocked. Later that day, they both get ready for a duel. Glenn tells her that they will only use shock bolt. The other students think that Glenn will easily win. Sistine is so nervous her legs are shaking. She attacks Glenn and he is electrocuted by her without any resistance. He tells her to attack again and he easily gets defeated by her. The next day, a girl approaches Glenn for a problem. Sistine tells her he won't help them even if he knows the solution. Glenn tells her what will they do by learning magic. Sistine says many things, but Glenn says that there's no practical use to it other than killing people and causing warfare. Hearing this, Sistine gets extremely upset and slaps Glenn. If it was real life, she would be in jail. Glenn gets angry but sees Sistine crying as she runs away from the class. In the evening, he thinks through what happened during the class and he was in the wrong. As he was walking back, he sees Rumia trying to draw a magic circle. Glenn enters the lab and tells her that what she is doing is not allowed in the lab. She says she will clean up the mess, but Glenn tells her that she can continue and the circle only needs more mercury. Glenn fixes the circle and tells her to chant his words and the circle starts working. As Rumia and Glenn walk, she asks her what he did. He tells her he is being leeching off Celica. Glenn asks her why the class is headstrong to learn spells, so Rumia says she is living with Sistine as she was banished from her family. She says that Sistine is learning magic because she was saved by a man when she was a child, so she wants to learn magic one day and thank him for giving her a second chance in life. Rumia tells Glenn to apologize to her since she had a tragic past with magic. In the classroom, Glenn apologizes to Sistine for being too rude, then he proceeds to call the entire class idiots. Glenn instantly casts Shockbolt and tells them that they know nothing about this spell. He proceeds to write the spell onto the board and tells them what will happen if they break it into 4 words. They think the spell will fail. Glenn chants the spell and it goes to the right. He shows multiple forms of the spell, shocking all the students. Glenn calls Sistine White Cat and makes her blush. He says it's all in the subconscious. He uses a single text to cast the spell and tells everyone all they are doing is memorizing magic spells. Celica is very impressed by Glenn's performance. The following days, his class is packed with students. In the afternoon, Celica and Glenn have a wholesome conversation and she needs to leave for a conference and he will be the only professor in the academy. Rumia and Sistine ask Glenn if he can help. At night, the girls think Glenn is an amazing professor but he should stop being lazy. On the other hand, a group of mysterious men are planning an attack on the academy. The next day, Glenn rushes towards the academy. Suddenly he slows down and tells the man hiding to come out. Looking at the tattoo on his hand, Glenn is shocked. On the other hand, 2 people enter the classroom. Sistine tells them to leave since outsiders are not welcome, but they use magic to threaten everyone. The intruder says who Rumia is. They ask all the students one by one and Sistine asks them why they are looking for her. The intruder tries to harm Sistine but Rumia intervenes, telling them it's her they are looking for. The intruder says Rumia is actually the second princess called Armenia and she is very valuable to them. Another intruder captures Sistine and throws her into an isolated room and he tries to assault her. She cries for help and Glenn enters the room. Our Chad tells him to stop but he tries to attack Glenn instead but none of his spells work. Glenn says with his original spell called Fool's World he can nullify all magic but his magic won't work either. He proceeds to use the Imperial Army's hand-to-hand combat technique and beats him to a pulp with a super kick. He knocks this retarded character. Glenn thinks that they had a very close call. Sistine thanks him for saving her and tells Glenn to pull up his pants. She tells Glenn that they took away Rumia. Celica calls Glenn and tells him what is going on. Glenn explains the situation to her and tells her that they belong to the Divine Wisdom Group, the top terrorists of the kingdom. Celica thinks there is an inside man through which they gained access. Glenn tells her to send reinforcements but she says that she is just a mere professor now and will get there somehow. Sistine learns that there will be no reinforcements. She tries to run but Glenn stops her. She says she will rescue Rumia, but our Chad tells her that she will be destroyed if she goes there by herself. She says that what he said is right and that magic is only used to kill. Glenn consoles Sistine and tells her that he will kill them. The intruder tells Glenn that he is no different from them. All of a sudden a portal opens up and hundreds of skeletons comes out. The intruder gets killed by his own boss. What a sucker. With the help of Sistine's magic Glenn seemed to kill them. Glenn tells her to perform a high-class spell and while he holds them back, she focuses and gets the spell ready with a lot of thinking. She casts the spell and the skeletons gets pushed back. The skeletons don't completely stop, so Glenn takes out a magic stone and casts an extremely powerful spell called Extinction Ray and blasts of half the academy. Glenn falls to the ground and has very low mana left. From behind another intruder comes with magic swords surrounding him. Glenn tells Sistine if she can dispel them. She says no so he throws her off the building. The intruder attacks Glenn with swords and he knows the weakness of Fool's World. He attacks Glenn injuring him. Glenn plans an attack but the intruder somehow stops it. The intruder attacks Glenn and he gets stabbed by the swords from behind. Sistine managed to dispel the swords. Glenn grabs one of the swords and rushes towards him, stabbing right through his heart. The man says he remembers Glenn the Imperial Mage Slayer and dies. Glenn is extremely injured. Sistine uses her magic and continues to heal him as he faints. In a flashback we see Glenn with hundreds of dead mages. He wakes up with Sistine beside him. Celica contacts him and tells him if he is okay and that the teleportation circle is sealed off. Rumia on the other hand asks the boss why he is with the terrorists as he is an instructor of the academy. Glenn breaks through the door and it's the professor whose place Glenn took. He explains that in 10 minutes the magic circle will activate and using his soul he will blow up the entire academy. The only way to stop this is by rewriting the circle. With no way out Glenn injures his hand and using his blood starts overwriting the circle one after another. Upon reaching the last circle he is unable to move. He drags himself to Rumia and faints. Rumia forces herself through the circle and uses amplification, which is an extremely rare skill. Glenn says she is an amplifier who can double someone's powers. Glenn forces himself and breaks through the circle causing a huge explosion. The intruder says it's his loss and Glenn beats him to a pulp. Sistine enters the room and sees Glenn resting on Rumia's lap. Two people are walking wondering why the queen wants to go to the academy that has been recently attacked. The maid tells him that the princess is there. The man is the imperial commander. He tells the queen that her arrival can cause the princess to be in danger. The queen hopes that she is okay and living her life well. At the class the students are trying to form a team for the school competition but is having troubles. Glenn suddenly enters the classroom and tells them they will win it at all cost. He forms a team in which all the students can participate. Wendy is not happy that she is not included in the duel. In a flashback we see Glenn begging for advance salary as he is broke. The principal says that he will get a good price if his team wins. In the evening the students from two different classes are fighting for space in the training ground. Glenn breaks the fight and tells them to calm down. The instructor from the other class called Hallie tells Glenn to clear the area. Glenn tells his group to move aside but Hallie wants them to leave the training ground. Glenn thinks it's a little too excessive. Hallie insults all of Glenn's students that most of them are useless. Glenn asks him if he wants to bet 3 months of salary to the winning team instructor. Hallie is confident and agrees to the bet. Sistine interferes and tells Hallie that if he doesn't stop occupying the ground for himself she will have to inform her family. With no way out he leaves the ground. The following days Glenn teaches the students separately and solves their particular problems. In a flashback we see Rumia crying and being surrounded by dead bodies and a guy looking like Glenn saves her from them. The girls talk about tomorrow's competition and have a wholesome dinner with their parents. The next day the maid tells the queen to wear a pendant that will look good on her. Later that day the competition commences. In the first round Glenn's students becomes third. The students are all fired up that they can win. Celica is extremely happy and starts talking informally with the queen. They are old friends. They both think Glenn is an extraordinary guy that can do the impossible for years. Glenn's students continue to win one round after another and they are currently ranked third. It's the mental defense round where Rumia will participate. The professor performs mental magic and students drop one after another, and the last ones standing are Rumia and last year's winner Jahil. The professor casts a strong magic which they both survive. The professor decides to increase the power and Rumia falls on her knees. Glenn forfeits in her place and tells Rumia her opponent was way too strong. Suddenly they notice that Jahil is unconscious, so the professor declares Rumia the final winner. The queen is very satisfied that her daughter is doing well. The maid says she should have a meeting with her and Celica agrees as well. From far away two people are keeping an eye on Glenn. They are Glenn's previous accomplices, but they are currently here to look after the queen as her guards are acting weirdly for the past few days. It's lunch break and everyone is enjoying their lunch, but Glenn is extremely hungry. Rin asks Glenn for help. She says if someone can replace her as she is not confident enough. Rin says she is practicing hard but she is not doing it right. Glenn tells her to have fun as it doesn't matter if she loses. Glenn uses transmutation and turns into Rumia and tells her that she should leave everything to her imagination. She gains her confidence and leaves while Sistine brings food for Rumia. Since Glenn is hungry he tries to eat Rumia's food. As he was about to eat it, Rumia comes from the behind. Sistine dispels the magic and it's Glenn. She throws him far away with wind magic. After some time Rumia comes with a big basket of sandwiches and Glenn enjoys it. Rumia says it's not her who made it but her friend who was angry on the person she made it for. As they were talking the queen comes from the behind. It's the imperial commander who is very tensed where the queen is. The maid tells something to Celica and she is very shocked. The queen and Glenn have a conversation and she says it's been a year since they last met. She bows her head down and apologizes to him for his unsettling firing during his service, but Glenn says that he wanted to leave. Alice the queen tries to talk with Rumia but Rumia says that she is not her daughter and she might have confused her with someone else. She is extremely sad and runs away. Alice is very sad and before she leaves she tells Glenn to take care of her daughter. The imperial commander Zealous surrounds the queen with swords and Zealous tells her to accompany them. As Glenn was thinking about Rumia, Sistine comes out of nowhere and tells Glenn that Rumia is nowhere to be found. Glenn explains to her what had happened and now he will go out to look for her. Glenn meets up with Rumia and she tells him that she was banished because of her cursed powers which could cause harm to the kingdom and she wants to call Alice mom one more time. Glenn tells her that she should confront her. She tells her that all this time she has been holding back. Suddenly imperial guards surround them and they say that Rumia tried to assassinate the queen and must be executed immediately. They hit Glenn from the back and take Rumia away. As Rumia was about to be executed by the guards, Glenn uses light magic and beats them all up, freeing Rumia. Glenn thinks the queen would never order her execution. Glenn uses magic and runs with Rumia on his arms as they walk over one building after another. Glenn thinks of contacting Celica. She says that she can't help him and can't say a single thing and says it's now all up to him and he must bring himself to the queen. The maid tells Celica that the queen's necklace is cursed and she is from the divine wisdom. The only way to save the queen is by killing Rumia. On the other hand, Glenn is being attacked by the two mages but one of them stops the other one from attacking Glenn. The guy is called Albert and the girl is called Riel. Albert says that the soldiers are acting on their own. They are all confused what to do. Glenn tells Albert that Celica told him to present himself in front of the queen and if it's from Celica who was once the greatest mage in the continent it must mean something. Glenn's students are losing and Albert and Riel approaches them and tells them that Glenn is in some trouble, so he left him in charge of them. Riel holds Sistine's hands and calls her Sistine. Hearing this she agrees. Everyone is okay with it because if they lose Glenn would bully them very badly. It's the transmutation round and class 1 gets 37 out of 40 changing into a dragon. It's Rin's turn and she focuses transforming into the god of time getting a perfect score of 40. One round after another they win, managing to tie with class 1. It's the last round and they are 1 each. The last battle is on Sistine. She gets pushed back at first but Sistine realizes that Albert and Riel is actually Glenn and Rumia. She uses wind magic and dominates her opponent, knocking him out and winning the competition. On the other hand, the soldiers surrounded Glenn and Rumia. Albert and Riel approach the queen. Albert transforms into Glenn and everyone is shocked. Glenn says they swapped themselves with friends of his. Celica uses her magic called the World and separates them from the others. Glenn tells the queen to stop the commander. Zealous's retarded bull says that the queen must live, so Rumia has to die. The queen orders Zealous to execute her and mixes a few words with it. Rumia is heartbroken and Celica doesn't say anything. Glenn tries to figure the problem out, so he thinks there is something wrong with her necklace. Glenn tells the queen to take her necklace off. He tells Rumia that Alice truly loves her. Our queen throws the necklace off and the curse is removed. Glenn figures out the entire thing, and if the curse was explained she would die, and to remove it Rumia had to killed. The commander is confused how the curse didn't work. Glenn used his fool's world to stop the curse before it activated. Alice and Rumia have an emotional conversations and Rumia finally calls her mom. In the afternoon Glenn thanks his friends for the help they provided. As Rumia and Glenn were walking, Glenn tells Rumia that 3 years ago the queen begged him to save her from hundreds of mages. Hearing this, Rumia considers herself lucky. At the party all the students are drunk and the bill is so huge Glenn is disturbed. In the middle of the night, Glenn is teaching Sistine hand-to-hand combat. After the practice Sistine is not sure why they are learning hand-to-hand combat. Glenn tells her that after this he will teach her military-grade magic. Sistine is very impressed and says she will continue her training with him. In the morning as Rumia and Sistine were walking they meet up with Glenn. Rumia tells Glenn that he doesn't need to wait for her as she feels safe. Glenn says he is here for something else. From behind Riel tries to kill Glenn with a sword. He stops it and Riel says this is her way of greeting him. She is the new student that the Imperial Army sent as a bodyguard to protect Rumia, but Riel says that she will not protect her but she here to protect Glenn. He punishes her and tells her that it's her duty and she must do it. In the classroom Glenn introduces Riel and everyone in the class is excited as she is cute. Riel introduces herself with a single word and everyone thinks she is weird. Glenn tells her to say more and she says that she lives for Glenn and he is her everything. Everyone in the class is shocked about their relationship and Sistine feels jealous. Later that day as they are practicing magic, Sistine gets a perfect score by hitting all 6 targets. It's Riel's turn. She uses Shock Bolt continuously and misses her targets. Glenn tells her to use another spell. She uses military-grade magic and blasts the dummy using her sword. Everyone in the class thinks she is very dangerous. During lunch break Sistine and Rumia tells Riel to join them for lunch. As they look through the items Riel sees a strawberry parfait and takes a plate full of it while she eats. Everyone in the class gets closer with her as she gobbles up cakes. In the library Glenn tells Celica that Riel is holding well and he will take the students to a field trip. The next day the students are displeased why they are going to a beach. Glenn tells them that the boys will get to see the girls in bikini and they are very pleased. As Glenn was walking by a shopkeeper stops him. It's Albert in disguise. He tells Glenn that he is the real bodyguard and Riel is just a decoy. Furthermore he tells him to keep Riel in check as she is very dangerous. At the beach Sistine, Rumia and Riel show their bikini to Glenn and he is very impressed. Then they enjoy themselves playing volleyball all day. At night the girls have a wholesome conversation with Riel and she plays cards with them. At midnight the 3 of them see the sky filled with stars and they finally become friends. Glenn is confused what's dangerous about Riel as she is a simple girl. When everyone is asleep Riel meets up with Glenn and they have a fight because Riel thinks Rumia and Sistine stole him from her and he is not paying her attention. This concludes the video. Make sure to like and subscribe for more videos.